Hey babies, hey babies, hey babies. Hi everyone. Hi everyone. Yes, the day has come, everybody. You've been waiting for a new jersey. You get a new jersey today. Congratulations, everybody. We made it. We made it. The alternate jerseys are out today. We made it.
Alternate jerseys out, and they knocked it out of the park. It is exactly what we all wanted. It is the classic look. It's the classic pants. My first notice or my first detail here is there's no team name on it anywhere. Because if
That's
you
right.
remember the old jersey, not the like 70s, 80s version, but the 2000s version said Redskins on it. They now say
Yeah.
Commanders or Washington. So I thought that was my first actually reaction was no team name. I actually really, really like that on these ones.
So let's not read into that. Let me reiterate. Now that you just brought it up, I'm going to say this again, just so everybody hears it very loudly and very clearly. Although the president's talking about it, although people ask Josh Harris about it at every turn, that name's not coming back. Like, it isn't. Now,
Yeah.
I suppose anybody could change their mind at any point in time, but it's not. And I've been told a million times it's not coming back. They are the Commanders in perpetuity. And if they're not the Commanders, they're not going to be the Redskins. Sorry. But I do love that they look like the Redskins again. This is amazing. These jerseys that are, if you're watching this on YouTube that we have up, they're the old, and I love that they're doing the white ones because that was the championship look for them
Yep.
back in the 80s. They were one of the few teams actually back then that wore the white jerseys, the burgundy pants. That was their championship look. Very rarely did they wear the burgundy jersey. In fact, sometimes it would only happen like once a year because Dallas would wear the white jersey at home. It'd be the only time they would wear their burgundy jersey. Oftentimes they'd only wear it once or twice a year. Obviously, everybody flips around now. This is the championship look for them. It is almost to a T exactly the look of the 80s, including the helmet change, which has the old school burgundy and gold stripes down the middle of it. When I went to South Carolina, you may recall, and they made the Empire Media helmet for me. They were making the helmets, and it kind of leaked to me that like the gold face mask was kind of part of it. So I kind of kept that to myself. I will reiterate, I never saw what they were going to do. I had a very good idea of what they were going to do, but I never saw it. And I just think this is an easy way to appease a lot of people, whether, however you feel about the name, because they look like the Redskins again when they wear this. This is their winning look. This is the look I wish they never got away from, honestly. Like whether they were Washington football team or Commanders, I wish they never got away from it. And I don't know this, but like I got a funny feeling this is going to be the permanent look when they're allowed to do so, probably down in the future.
Yeah, I think you and I have had this discussion many times over the years before they went to the Commanders that some kind of refresh was needed. And I think when we were talking about that in years past before they became the Commanders, I think you and I were really kind of just barking up the alternate tree. Like, I think that black alternate jersey is kind of what you and I were itching for a couple of years ago. Then when they did the whole rebrand, you knew they were going to do all new jerseys. But, I think what maybe perturbed the Redskins forever people, as we call them, is that when they were the Washington football team, nothing really changed overall in their look. Yes, they removed the old Native American logo and just put numbers on, but they still kept that same old school feel. And I kind of remember thinking by the end of that 2-year run, you could change the name, but keep the look. And I think it would just satisfy a lot of people. Here we are, literally a little over 3 years later. They have
Yeah.
now kind of gone back to this. I'm not surprised, but I think what overall happened here too is everyone just realized, and if you didn't realize it before, how great that look is. It is so classic. You cannot really deviate from that. That is their history. And this satisfies everybody as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. For those who are listening and aren't looking at it right now with us on YouTube, the W is still on the helmet. The W
Yeah.
is unchanged. There's nothing that's been altered about it. It's just on the old schooly looking helmet. Like the new helmet has kind of that matte burgundy look. This is the old school colors. They keep telling me it's the same color, but like it doesn't look that way every time you look at it. And it's got that old, the striping down the middle of the helmet that was classic to the old Redskins helmet, but they kept the W. It's the white jerseys, the burgundy pants with the old school striping down the left side. I felt this way for a long time, that they were kind of due for a refresh, but not to get away from their look. Listen, I don't blame them for, going through the process, changing the name and deciding that, we're turning a page and therefore we need to kind of change the look to go along with it. But it was the one thing about all of it that no one was complaining about, that everybody liked, that they liked the color. They went crazy to get away from the color scheme. And every time they told me it was the same colors, it never looked that way on TV. It never looked that way in person. These jerseys look like a completely different color scheme than the ones that they have, even though they've told me a million times that burgundy is the same burgundy. It just doesn't look it. I don't know. I don't know what it is about it, but it's like an optical illusion that it does not look the same. And I'm glad they're doing this. And I also want to point out that the picture that's on the website that we're showing here, they are standing in front of RFK. That's the old RFK Stadium. So it's just another nudge to, this is where we want to be, where we want to go. This is what we look like. We're going back to the old school, version of all this. And let's see if that next step comes after all of this.
I believe the actual name of these is the Super Bowl era jersey or something along those lines. So it is fitting that they are going to put them in front of RFK for all of this as well. One other thing I wanted to point out as well, because we talked about kind of the name not being on the jersey. That wasn't really for me any kind of door opening for the old name or whatever, but it is something that I have pointed out many times. You can still buy the old school jerseys. It's only select players, but it's on Mitchell & Ness's website. Mitchell & Ness is now owned by Fanatics. It is not an independent company out of Philadelphia. They were glommed onto with Fanatics. But they started selling old Redskins jerseys again, pretty soon after Commanders came out. I don't even know if they ever stopped. But what they did stop was they didn't have the name Redskins on it. So if you were to buy certain jerseys, they would just be the look. It wouldn't actually have the name. And I remember thinking, oh, this is how they're going to skirt by. Lo and behold, this is exactly what they're doing. They're not putting any names on them anywhere on those jerseys, which I think is perfectly fine, because really in the 70s and 80s, there was no branding like that on the actual, jersey side of things. So I'm not surprised that they're kind of just making it its own little thing and that there is no actual name anywhere on there. And then to the RFK point one more time too, if it's the Super Bowl era, you kind of have to have them posing in front of that stadium and not the new stadium.
Yeah, 100%. So they're pushing hard on that. They're only going to wear these 3 times. They are all home games. Seattle, Denver, and the Dallas Christmas game at home are the 3 that they're going to wear it. If you're wondering why don't they just put this on for all the games this year that they're going to wear a white jersey? You're not allowed to by NFL rules. This is an alternate. You are only allowed to wear it a few times. But as pointed out, I didn't catch who wrote this, but this has happened where a couple of teams have gone back to alternates, and then it became the permanent look. The Jets are one of the most recent ones that have done that. They had switched their look. They went to an alternate that was their old school kind of 80s look, and that's become their permanent look again. I would be surprised if this, or not something just kind of like this, becomes the permanent look again for the Commanders. And then we'll just have to see what happens with a burgundy jersey if they go in the same route and try to get that same old look again. But that would be, quote unquote, a second alternate that would have to come down the road. They could be a team, though, in the next couple of years that are wearing these white jerseys far more often because it becomes their look again. And, I'm assuming, because we haven't done the straw poll yet. I mean, it literally just came out as we're taping this, but I'm going to assume that this is going to be very well received. And one of the probably best well-received things they've done since the reboot, honestly. I remember when they were Washington football team, they still looked like the Redskins. They just had the numbers on it. And I'll never forget that last game in New York the year. And I remember looking down at them going, I don't know what their next jerseys are going to look like, but they're not going to look like this. I feel like I'm looking at the Redskins literally for the last time. This is nice. And their look never got stale. I always thought it could be refreshed and maybe modernized, but they're classic. And I'm glad that they're back to this, even if it's only for a few games this year. But I do feel like the fans will tell you what they want. The audience tells you what they want. I'm assuming they're going to sell a bazillion of these over, the next, whatever couple of years. And I wouldn't be surprised, because this ownership group really does want to lean into the past and the future, that this does become a more permanent look when they're allowed to by NFL rules.
Yeah, I mean, if you've listened, if anyone has been listening to us since your old time slot into this time slot, like I've told you this for years, right? You can vouch for me that I said this was going to be the gateway to get back to a different look, was throw an alternate that looks like the old jersey on. Eventually it's going to sell 1 million jerseys. The NFL is going to go thumbs up, release the other one, and all of a sudden this is their gateway to go back to the old look. And what it does is it doesn't just flip a switch either. There's a transition period where, hey, you like the old jerseys? Go buy those, whatever. If you still want to go buy those. But this is exactly how everyone else has done it. You said the Jets. I'm trying to think. There was one other team that also did this as well. I almost want to say it couldn't have been the Chargers, because the Chargers refreshed, but there was another team that did this too, that basically was like, those look so good. Why are those just not the full-time uniforms? And they did the same exact thing. This is the pathway how you do this now. And what it does, it's a natural transition. And then guess what? You get to throw it back whenever you want to the other ones if you actually want to go that route too. So
I mean, it's funny. Like, I think the Eagles have won so much in their uniforms that they probably would never go back. But every time they throw those old school Kelly Greens on, everybody is like freaks out about them, and they love that look for them and that old schooly look. I've said this about the Giants, and they wear them regularly now. They don't wear them all the time, but they wear it's not their permanent jersey. They still wear the newer look. But when they go back to that 80s font that says Giants on their helmet with those kind of sleek blue or the white, even the white jerseys, that's their best look to me. And I'm surprised it doesn't become more permanent, but they wear it multiple times a year now, because I think they recognize it is probably their best and most sought after look. For this, I just don't even think there's going to be a comparison. All along, there's been at least a segment of the fan base that hasn't been particularly pleased about the reboot just in general, and, yearns for getting back to not only the name, which will never happen, but the look. And I think this is a good sign about where we're going. I guess, because this is very classically what the 80s look was of all the championship years. Could they ultimately end up somewhere where the look is this, but a little bit more modern, down the road? I think maybe. I saw, I think Nikki Jabala had a quote from the Washington Post of someone who said, we're going to continue to look at all of our options for what our look will be moving down the future. I do think it's pretty safe to say, though, this is going to become their white jersey, in the future. And then let's see what they do with the burgundy ones. Let's see how everyone takes to the W being on the helmet. I always thought that was the best part of the rebrand anyway. I don't mind that logo. I think it looks really good. Let's see how everyone feels about seeing it with the old jerseys again. But I didn't feel, in glancing at it and looking at it, I don't feel any desire to change that at this point. So I think I'm pretty satisfied with that part, but it's the only part that carries over from the new look to, this old reboot.
The only thing I'll nitpick at is I like the Washington football team W more than the Commanders W. It's filled in. It doesn't look like a taco holder, as some people like to say. So I'll take that W over the one that they currently have. I'm nitpicking though. That's what I'm doing. Other than that, I actually like the numbers on the Washington football team, helmets too. So if they were to go to that, I wouldn't be mad about that. Here's really what it ultimately boils down to as well with them going to this look. You have to think about how they are as a franchise. They are, a franchise that's over 90 years old. They're going to hit their 100th anniversary soon, right? You have to go with a look that matches that. The Packers look has literally not changed in 50, 60, 70, 80 years, whatever it is. The Raiders have not changed their look in that long. I feel like that's a part of this too.
Pittsburgh hasn't done it. Really, Dallas tweaks their look, but really wear their classic uniform all the time.
Yeah. Right. And even then, they have a throwback, right? Where it's the solid star, whatever. But I think that's where I think the plot was lost in the Commanders rebrand was you had to change the name. It doesn't mean you had to go absolutely crazy with all the looks. I told you before, where I nitpick these new uniforms because there's actually weird inconsistencies with them that I don't really understand. The burgundy one says Commanders. The white one says Washington on it. The black one has Commanders up on the side. You can see it on YouTube behind me. I just thought it was really weird how they got really inconsistent all of a sudden. And
Yeah.
that's where, like, you're an old school franchise. I wish you wouldn't have gone that crazy with this rebrand. And so that's where I've kind of landed with it. And that's why, like, I'm glad they're going back to this, because you can't F with it pretty much. It is what it is, and it's old school, and it's exactly who they are as a franchise.
No, it looks great. It looks great because it's their look that everyone yearns for. I mean, like, it's like, you call this an alternate or whatever, but like, it really is their old jersey. And that's the funniest part of the whole thing. Is they're called, like, you think of this one was going to be different than I think whatever there's a bunch of other teams are going to have ones come out today too. I haven't seen them yet, and maybe we'll go through them later in the week after we see them all. But this is the one that really stands out, I think, because there's so much emotion attached to it because of the changes that were made with the franchise. All right. I talked about this a lot yesterday, but I didn't get a chance to talk to you about it. What'd you think about the president weighing in on the name, and then more so, I think more importantly, because I think he just weighing in on the name to me was like, that's just such the easiest answer for him, because it's just red meat, you know, like it falls into the category. If I say something that's anti-woke, my base likes that. Like, it's just such an easy, like, he's just playing the hits by saying something like that. And I don't think anything of it. And anyone who turns that into a headline, he's asking them for to change his name. He didn't say anything like that. He just said he wouldn't have changed it. I think it was just like a red meat statement. So I don't think much about it. More importantly, he actually took a measured approach about how he spoke about the deal between the city and the team for the stadium. And I talked about this for a while yesterday. I wonder if you felt the same way, that this was just a warning shot, that he's basically saying, I'm staying out of it for now, but I may push my thumb on the scale really soon if you guys don't move on this thing.
Yeah, I actually thought his response was pretty good in terms of giving the DC City Council a little credit of, like, they need the best deal that they want too. And I was like, oh, okay, art of the deal guy over here. Like, I was actually pleasantly surprised he took the middle road there of, like, they have to get the best deal that they have to as well. And I think we all understand that. That's all this is the politics, is what else can you kind of squeeze out of the team and kind of, you know, bridge the gap on this deal. The ultimate thing was, I didn't really even look at it as a threat. He just said, hey, ultimately it's the federal government, right? Like, we can do something about that. I honestly just thought it was him stating facts, because I also don't think he wants to rock the boat yet. Like, that's where I kind of felt with this one, where
I think the word is yet. You know, I think, like, actually, the way I kind of feel about it is this: if he does want to get involved, like, I was talking to a couple people about it yesterday, what can he do? Well, I think reputationally, which he's amazing at, he could put some names of people out in the public and do, I don't know if harm's the right word for it, but spotlight them in a way that they're probably not accustomed to. And that can go very poorly for the people who end up. So I think the danger for the council is reputationally, if he does get involved, that's probably the direction he would go. Here's what I would say, though, to the team, if they want him to weigh in and be the partner / bedfellow of pushing this forward. Beware of what you wish for here, because this is a president who's not only impulsive, but also very transactional. So if he were to literally weigh in on your behalf and push the ball forward, he's going to want something. So what's that thing he wants that you may or may not want to give him? And I don't know what that would be. I could speculate things that he might want, like his name on the side of the building. So I would be very, very, very careful, both sides. And I think yesterday, like that thing that I played yesterday and what we heard was very down the middle, very, like, just not even really a warning shot, just I get it. But there was at the end of it but that's a pretty good deal. And, you know, we do it. It's the federal government that's involved. And if you want me to get involved, I will. So I would take that seriously. I know he what's hard with this president is half the things he says, you don't know if he's BSing or not. Like, it's like half of it, you're not sure whether he's serious or not. And if he is serious, he can push the levers in a way that makes things very uncomfortable at best, very uncomfortable. So I would be wary of it, and I would take it seriously, because the next time he gets asked about it, because he will, if it doesn't move forward quickly, you may not like what he says next time because he's so impulsive. You don't know what he's going to say about it.
I think I do have to open up one of my conspiracy theories though from last year. Remember, I put on my tinfoil hat when it came to Dan Quinn and the W with the feather, right? And I've told you this many times that maybe it was team orchestrated, maybe it wasn't, but I've thought that it was a psyop for the fan base, for the media, whatever. But remember, I told you this last year where what if the return to RFK and, gets Trump involved, and Trump's caveat with that is, I don't want to help you move back into the city unless the name gets changed back. Like, I know I know they're a private business and you can't force them to do that. But remember what I also kind of said to you as well when that happened was, what is Josh Harrison Company? They're going to go, oh no, we have to change the name back because so many people do want that. When you ask, or when you're kind of putting that question out there of what does Trump want or what does he want to do? I could see his ego being stroked by saying, I brought the Redskins back. I could see that being a piece of something that he could say that he wants. And this isn't me advocating for the name. I've just said the team almost like they'd be putting them between a rock and a hard place, but a place where some people want them to go back to. So that's another kind of thing that I was thinking about yesterday, where he brought up the name thing, and that's the second time he said that, right? Like, he's been asked about that multiple times. We know how he feels about that.
He didn't bring it up. He's asked about it.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
asked about it.
I meant his opinion. Like, we already know he has said, I wouldn't have changed the name. Like, he said that multiple times before. That wasn't new. It was a new soundbite, right? But that's one thing I was kind of thinking about yesterday. Like, what could he say that, like, oh, I brought back if they were to help him out with this? And that's one of the ones that I was kind of thinking was, I was on that a year ago, that maybe he wants to be the one to do that. And will that happen? I doubt it. But, like, I don't know. We don't know with this presidency what he actually would demand or kind of ask them to do if he were to help them out to get the RFK site done.
I mean, in any other times with any other president, it would just be what you're talking about would be so preposterous. It would be like, I won't even like listen to it. But it's not that far fetched with him. Like I said, if he gets literally involved, he's going to do so for a reason, and he's going to want something for it. I got like a little nervous when he had the event in the White House after the announcement at the National Press Club, because I went, oh no, like, what does he want here to like help make this happen? Because he and the federal government have to help make this happen. So what does he want for that? And it made me nervous thinking about it at the time, but things got real quiet. And then they were just kind of going through the process of getting the stadium done. And it felt like everything was just smoothly going along. And this is what I would say to the city council: be very careful what you're doing here. Like, it's clear there are a lot of very powerful people who can make life very difficult for you, and seem like he's not weighing in on the Titan Stadium or the Bills Stadium or the Bears Stadium or the Chiefs Stadium, but he's weighing in on this one because he can. And after saying things like hinting, we're going to take over DC, maybe, like, as he likes to do. I never know half the time if he's kidding or not. Like, when he says, I'm going to take over Greenland, I didn't take him seriously, but then then one day you do have to take him seriously. Or we're going to make Canada a state. Like, ha ha ha, that's really funny. No, I'm serious. We're going to make Canada a state. And you're like, oh, you're not kidding. And that's where I would just say he's impulsive. Today, it's I wouldn't have changed the name and, get your deal done over there. Tomorrow, he could wake up and go, I've decided that stadium needs to be for the Redskins, period. And so you just don't know. And that's why I'm like, for both sides, you're both better served getting this done. And the thing for the city council, I would just say, you all seem to be a very more than tentative yes. Not everybody across the board, but the majority of you, tentative yes. Get to that yes faster. The longer you like draw this thing out, the more things get a little sticky publicly, and the more he might weigh in. That's all. That would be my advice to all of you, especially the DC City Council. If you are probably a yes, be a yes sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple facets here. One, on the name thing too, like, this does fit in with what he has been, and since he's been elected, is very anti-woke, right? And so, the name change was a part of that movement in, what was that, 2020? Was it 2020? I guess, yeah, that did happen. And so that would be, something that he has done before and that they have tried to change. And that would be something that, would satisfy his base or himself or whatever, however we want to, couch it. But then on the other side of that, I'm kind of with you. Like, he doesn't have to get involved, but we all know if he does, he's going to want something back in return. That's what happens. And that's just who he is. I'm not even like criticizing him. He does this because it's okay. Then what are you going to do for me? That is essentially what the art of the deal is for him. So I'm not going to be surprised if he does demand something. And there's one other thing that happened yesterday too. And I don't know if you saw this, that like Phil Mendelssohn, who's been kind of the spearhead of a lot of this thing, he apparently, acquired, I guess, the budget before everybody and then didn't share it. And now the DC City Council is starting to point fingers at each other. And I think the team is about to go, guys, stop bickering. Yeah. Like, here it is. Let's knock this out. Tell us what you need. We need this in because we're trying to get this Women's World Cup here to make up some money. So let's get the ball rolling on this.
I have a feeling, and I don't know, I have a feeling this is going to be voted on and approved before they go on their recess in August. That's what I think is going to happen. But, we'll see. That's what I think is going to happen here.
I've said this on my show a few times too. I think what's ultimately going to happen is I think there's going to be kind of like an in-between thing of we all approve this stadium being built. Let's get the ball rolling on that, and we can work out some of the details as the stadium's being built over the next 5 years. If this is about
parking, then we can talk about that. If this is about the deal, you have to approve it to put shovels in the ground and start doing it. But if this is about, we want to talk about the revenue share of parking structures, well, that's a whole different thing, and we could talk about that. Yeah,
that's where I've landed. I'm like, I think what's going to happen here is they're going to go, do we all agree a stadium should be built here? Yes, let's get that ground broken and ready to go, and we can work on the rest of the stuff over the next 5 years. And I think that's ultimately where it's going to land.
All right, let me take a quick break. Bram watch the show. ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. All right, welcome back. The Nationals reboot truly begins. The new interim GM, who's been in the building for a long time, spoke to the media for about 15 minutes yesterday. And the big takeaway lines from it were that they need fresh eyes. There was an admittance of that they need more data and analytics to be utilized throughout the organization. It was an admission of that, and that true change needs to come. And I'm sitting there going, let me get this straight. The answer was hiding in plain sight the whole time. Like, you're our knight in shining armor that's been sitting there underneath Rizzo for all of these years. So while I think he said all the right things, no offense, like the hard part of hearing him say it was, haven't you been working in this building the whole time? And you're telling me you need a fresh approach? And you're explaining to me how you're the fresh approach. That's, I don't know. All right. Like, I want to give you the benefit of the doubt, but like, geez, like, what? Like, weren't you there the whole time?
Yeah, I mean, you have to remember though, Mike Rizzo was the president and the GM. Usually, those are separate things. So anything this guy was saying, Rizzo ultimately got final say. It was his way or the highway. And as we know, Rizzo kind of prickly, which I like that about Rizzo. So it doesn't mean that this guy's, statements were going through to Riz. What I will say is, to me, it almost sounded like I'm the interim GM. I'm going to say what I want right now because there's no guarantee that I'm going to be here on the other side anyways, because they might go out and hire somebody. And I think that was his kind of statement of like, I'm just going to say what needs to be said here. And you know what I actually liked was freaking Mark Lerner and Rizzo were telling me how great this rebuild was going. And this guy just came out and was like, everything needs to change. And I was like, Thank you. That's all I want. All I want is some honesty. You don't need to sugarcoat it and you don't need to be as harsh, but tell me how things are going. Stop telling me this rebuild's going great when it's not going great.
Yeah, it's not. And like, that's where like I love Rizzo, and I think of his time fondly here. Like, I do think of him as an architect of a really great franchise. He had a big part of it. Yes, the ownership had to pay some money to bring in some key marquee people like Max Scherzer, but like, it was his ability to flip some of these trades that really along the way helped shape this whole thing. As they've gone through this reboot, what's become abundantly clear is this team doesn't draft very well. And when they do, they don't develop players very well. It's very rare that they have somebody come up through through their system. And now that they're not spending any money, it's like they're lost at sea. And then all he does is throw his ring at me. And I go, like, I appreciate that. I'll never not appreciate it. But there is a statute of limitations. And if you're going to sit there and keep telling me over and over and over things are going swimmingly when my eyes tell me they're not, I'm sorry, but at some point I need you to get real with me. And I think his way of getting real was to say some kind of passive aggressive thing about the ownership along the way. Like, it would never be for any level of accountability. And I think, I just think this is a good thing. I know, like, it was shocking when it happened, and it's both of them, which is rare. But, like, knowing that their contracts were coming up, knowing that all of these pieces had come out that really kind of exposed all the things that we've talked about for a long time. I would say this for a couple of years. I'm like, I don't see it. I don't like what's going on here. I don't really see it. They have a lot of, I don't know what I don't know about the really young, very high picks that they have that are coming in here. And maybe that'll alter things very quickly because these are high-end draft picks. But I don't see the basis of this turnaround happening. And they keep saying they're not going to spend any money until they show the promise of having a team that looks like it's on the verge and I don't know, warrants spending the money, which frankly, I don't think is a very good excuse either, but that's a different conversation. If his role is draft, develop, find the pieces to give us the basis to then go out and pay for the big time free agents to fill the holes that we need, he did fail there. So he could sit there and blame, the ownership for a lot of things. That's a failure on him and his front office. You get to draft, you get to develop. We can talk about if you had the resources to do the job, and it doesn't sound like they had all the resources other teams had. But the fact of the matter is most of the players that they draft don't get better. So, I mean, like, whose fault is that? Like, you're going to blame Mark Lerner for that? I can't blame Mark Lerner for that.
Well, we also don't know, and I've said this before, we don't know what the infrastructure looks like either. Like, are they investing anything into that, the minor league system of helping these guys develop? What does that consist of? I don't know. That's not my job. And I think there's probably some kind of percentage of that. But overall, like, when you look at it and you look that they're only like actual great major leaguer, the last one that they drafted in the first round was Anthony Rendon in 2011. There's clearly a problem happening with your drafting and your developing. You don't just miss that many times. Like, imagine if an NFL team whiffed for 14 straight years in the first round. That's almost impossible, right? Like, you'd have to be just terrible if you just didn't at least fall into a good first round draft pick. They haven't even been able to do that. And so that's where, like, I don't know where the blame pie ends up landing here. The other thing I'll say is this is after thinking about this for the last couple of days, Mike Rizzo kind of lived dangerously year to year from about 2018 on, where they basically had a structured lineup, but he had to duct tape things together. Like, you and I used to joke about it. Don't worry about the bullpen because Mike Rizzo figures it out, right? He duct tapes one together by the end of the year. Well, 3 years in a row now, he hasn't been able to do that, and they've just been even worse. And then you look at the actual lineup, and he can't actually pull a trade-off to get ahead of anything. They're constantly playing catch-up because of how bad the drafts were. It really just came to a head literally the year after they won the World Series. Like, they had a bad COVID year, and I'm not blaming them on that. But then in 2021, it all came to a head where you've been so bad at drafting and developing that there's no one left in the pipeline. And then the following year is what led them to trading Juan Soto. And that current year, they traded Trey Turner. Like, they had to start moving on from pieces because there were literally not any answers anymore. He has to answer for that. I'm not saying it's 100% his fault, but it's a large chunk of it. He was not great at doing that. That's ultimately what his downfall was.
Yeah, I guess I would say, like, obviously what was said yesterday resonates because he hit all the high notes. We need a fresh outlook. We need, new perspective on all of this. We do need to develop our players much better than we have. Like, we do need to use more data analytics, that we need to be more modern that way. Like, he hit all the high notes of things I want to hear. It's just like, I don't know, like, does he fall in line with what was happening before with Rizzo, which was he's just telling me what he thinks I need to hear, but it's like defying what what I'm viewing. Like, I don't want to dismiss what he said. He's given an opportunity here for however long to try to implement these things that he's talking about. But I'm sitting there going, are you the right person to tell me that? Like, you've been in the building the whole time. So you're so have you been pounding the table telling Rizzo, you should be doing this, you should be doing this, you should be doing this, and you're being ignored? Is that what you're saying? Because you're part of the problem too. If you're part of the front office that isn't drafting and developing and all of these things that you're talking about needs to change. No kidding. They all need to change. I'm not trying to come at this guy, but like, he said all these things. They're all the right things to say. Is he the right person to say them when he's been part of the front office that's been ignoring all these things for the last few years?
I mean, I think you're asking the right question, but I don't think he had a voice. It was Rizzo was the end-all, be-all decision maker. You're also seeing some of the reports trickle out. I saw the post piece, I think it was yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday where I guess, there were some rumblings that the staff underneath Rizzo that was actually making some solid moves was not getting any kind of credit. And Rizzo was the one taking all the credit for it, even though he's an old school scout and doesn't believe in analytics and all that other stuff too. So there was some of that animosity happening. Once again, I also think this was a cry for help to ownership to just go, just because you fired Rizzo doesn't mean everything is going to change. We need actually real palpable change. And I don't know what that entails. Does that entail another revamping of the scouting department? Does that entail more money for more scouts? I don't know what that means. So same thing, because also this goes into what I think is actually the most important thing this week. And some people have talked about it, but not enough people have talked about it. You just fired somebody that's been in your organization since 2006, has been your GM and president since 2009, won you a World Series, and you fired your World Series manager. And you guys aren't talking? Like, ownership isn't saying anything?
Yeah.
That's absolutely unacceptable. Like, that's where I've landed after these last couple of days. This guy can say that things need to change, but I don't care if you don't talk to the media often. We even got a press conference or two out of Dan Snyder the last couple of years because he kind of had to talk with how things were going. You guys just fired the most significant pieces of your organization since you've been here, and crickets. You released a statement saying you needed new energy, but you haven't gotten in front of the press to do some kind of interview. You didn't even get in front of Dan Kolko to do a softball home broadcast interview, anything like that. To me, that's the most unacceptable part about the last 4 days, is that you guys haven't said a word about this and haven't answered any questions, not even softball questions about this. And that's where I've landed on it.
Yeah, I agree. The ownership, you don't have to be out there all the time. You don't have to be Jerry Jones, but you do need to speak to your paying customers.
Yes.
And you do need to speak to them, especially if you're going to do something like this, even as much as I agree with it. I don't know how much you're culpable for it, but I actually agree with all of it. Like, I love Rizzo. He will go down in lore for me. Like, but the time had come. Like, the organization, what they were promising was going to happen. Like, it felt very Ron, where Ron's like, just give me 3 more years and I'll do, it's like, well, at what point is the reboot over? And, and so like, I felt like it was time. I agreed on the, now knowing what the contractual situation was, I agreed with the timing of it more than I knew. Right. But I agree with you. If you're just not going to have a voice from ownership, then I think you leave yourself at a place where people don't trust you. And
Correct.
So I'm listening to the person who's been in this front office all this time, telling me about all these things that need to change and the fresh perspective. And I don't know if that's either just talking points because he's been there the whole time and just tell them what they want to hear, which are these things, or if that's real, because I can't talk to the owner about it. And I agree with you. There comes a time and place where ownership needs to have a voice, and they're not stepping up into that role. It is part of their responsibility, in my opinion. And I don't know why, you don't have to do it all the time. You don't have to be like Ted. Ted's very available, or at least was for a long time, very available. Sure. But Ted would talk on a day like this. No doubt about it. In fact, he would do interviews with everybody about it. He would do a press conference about it. I agree. Come out of the shadows, guys. It's time for you all to answer some questions about what you see directionally for the near term and the long-term future of the franchise, because I think we deserve to hear that. Especially the one that was the craziest one I thought was the team's up for sale or they're not up for sale, but they don't talk to anybody about it. We don't know if they are or not up for sale because they don't talk about that. Come on. Come on. I agree.
Well, and that's why, in my opinion, too, you need to get out there. Who's the face of this team right now? I assume it is Mark Lerner. I assume he's the new patriarch of the franchise, but we don't know that, right? I also want them, to be asked the question, because if they were to say, oh, well, we are still exploring a sale, or we're always exploring that, well, then my expectations change for everything that's happening anyways, too, because I told you this, the CBA is up next December. And if that's a lockout or they finally figure out the RSN stuff, I think the Nats are going for sale again here. But at least run the franchise to a bare minimum of trying to win right now. Like, you might as well try to win while you own them. And I think that's where, like, the same thing. I kind of go to ownership this week because it's really turned into how do we know that you are going to run this franchise in a way that you're trying to win? Like, that you're not going to just use it as a portfolio or use it as another, real estate piece for me right now. Because right now, I feel like you guys have just let the ship run rudderless at this point. I think Mike Rizzo was doing what he could, but I don't see a direction for anything for this franchise anymore. And it's really frustrating because you used to spend a little bit. You used to, have excitement with seasons moving forward. And I don't see that right now. I think the scariest thing right now at the Nationals, and I'll bring it up on your show, I brought it up on my show, was the next GM might come in here and have to come in and go, guys, I love James Wood, CJ Abrams, and Mackenzie Gore, but things are so bad, we might have to hit the reset button again. Like, that's the scariest prospect that I'm looking at right now, because he might have to come in and do that with the way that this ownership group is. If he can't spend, they need to turn into the Rays all of a sudden and start penny pinching. This rebuild could stretch even further. But guess what? We don't even know what the direction of the franchise is because they don't talk to anybody. So
that's right. Yeah. All right. Let me take a quick break. Very much the show ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. All right, welcome back. I saw this from Russian Machine Never Breaks. Alex Ovechkin was told not to do any exclusive interviews in Russia this summer, which he, does every so often, with exceptions of for sponsors or large press conferences for, partners or whatever, because they don't want whatever money quotes he's going to say about last season to come out, because their NHL is doing what they described as a film on him, which is not a surprise. And the NHL wants to have as many exclusive quotes from him about his experiences of breaking the record last year. So that makes sense to me. So don't expect to hear much from Alex Ovechkin. We need to get our interpreters. Our interpreters get the summer off. They don't have to listen to his interviews and hear him out this summer.
Yeah, I mean, this falls in line with what I have believed. I've told you this. He's going to fill out his contract. He's entering the last year of his contract. I think he retires at the end of this year. This, to me, is your first sign of this is NHL Last Dance. That's what I think it is. They've started to film this.
Do you think they're gonna embed somebody with him the whole year?
I think so. I think you'd be dumb not to.
Yeah, do like either Last Dance or like the quarterback series with him.
I think you have to. I think there's too much of an opportunity here. I've said this before. Like, did he love the locker room enough last year that he could play maybe 1 or 2 more years? Sure. I'm not going to rule that out at all. Like, it's not going to be a shock to me if he signs a 1-year deal or a 2-year deal. But all signs point, and he said it out loud. Even remember, his wife said it earlier this offseason basically this is going to be his last season. If you're the NHL, why are you not getting all the content you can starting right now, all the way until the end of the year? So I think this is Ovi Last Dance is what's happening.
Last Dance. So, boy, I wonder who else can, because I'm sure Monumental would like to do it on their own.
Sure. I mean, I'm gonna guess it's NHL
may step in. They may want to go with a group like the quarterback group. It does I watched episodes 1 and 2 of the new quarterback series. I don't know why Kirk's on it again, but like, I guess, whatever. Anyway, like Burrow's been outstanding on it so far. Like, you've actually learned a lot about him through, like, at least the first couple episodes I've seen of it so far. But that group would be a really good group to do this. So I guess we'll just have to see who he agrees to do it with and how it's done. All right, before I go, I have to mention this. I was really, really sad to see this pop up this morning. Tim Strachan passed away. Tim has had one of the most unbelievably inspiring stories you'll ever come across. He was a great, highly touted football player in high school locally at DeMatha. And he had an accident at the beach where he was paralyzed, I believe in the ocean. But he slipped or whatever, hit a wave. I don't know exactly what happened, but he was paralyzed. And so obviously, his life changed dramatically. And all he did was work at high levels in government, become a lawyer, was on the air with Johnny Holiday doing Maryland games for 20 plus years, I think. He was on there. He used to come on the show all the time. He's genuinely one of the nicest people you would have ever met. I loved every time I saw him. He just kind of lit up the room. And I knew he had some issues, but I didn't realize it was as serious as it was. And he passed away after a fight with cancer. He wasn't even 50 years old. He was married, leaves a few kids behind. I was very upset when I saw this. I loved him. I think he's a model of, persistence and resilience. And I feel for his family today.
I was lucky to go. I went to DeMatha for a year, and I ran into Tim my freshman year of high school and knew how nice of a person he was, and then got into this career. And you and I talk about this all the time. When you have guests on shows and they respond to you and stuff, they don't owe you anything, but Tim was literally one of the nicest people every time you reached out for him. Tim was one of the few people that asked me how I was doing, and I didn't even know he knew who I was over at TEM when we had him on a little bit more often because of Maryland broadcasts and stuff. One of the nicest guys. You remember guys like that, and you're right. Yeah. Like, just a positive influence, and perseverance is the word that I use with him. I mean, he was just one of the good ones. He was one of the good ones.
Yeah, he had such an incredible disposition on life after such a horrific thing that happened to him. It was just an accident. Yep. And I feel really for his family. I feel for all the people at Maryland too. I know what a big personality and what a big impact he had on the Maryland community too. So I was really sad to see that. So I wish his family the best here. I thought that was just terrible, terrible news to read that today. All right, hate to go out on a high note, but that's where we are. See you all tomorrow. Brave Watch the Show, ESPN 630 Sports Capital.